Hey guys, I'm back with some more Ivan. I changed out of my dragon jammies because I actually had to run to school real quick to pick up something from the mail. So I'm back in cozy clothes. I have my beanbag chair and a blanket, so we'll celebrate virtual pajama day that way. All right, so we are probably a little more than halfway through with our Ivan story. There were some sad parts. Remember, Stella passed away from the infection in her leg. And now Ivan is recalling some of his story of when he was a baby gorilla in the jungle, right? I thought of something really good I wanted to connect this to last night with you guys, but I forgot. Maybe it'll come back to me. All right, beds. One day, after many weeks of loud talking, Helen packed a bag and slammed the front door and never came back. Remember, Helen was Mac's wife when Ivan was a baby. I don't know why. I never know the why of humans. That night, I slept with Mac in his bed. My old nests were woven of leaves and sticks and shaped like his bathtub, cool green cocoons. Mac's bed, like mine, was flat, hot, without sticks or stars. Still, he made a sleeping sound like the rumble my father used to make when all was well, a sound from deep inside his belly. What do you think that sound is? A snore? My place. Mac grew sullen. I grew bigger. I became what was meant to be, too large for chairs, too strong for hugs, too big for human life. I tried to stay calm, to move with dignity. I did my best to eat daintily, but human ways are hard to learn, especially when you're not a human. When I saw my new domain, I was thrilled, and who wouldn't have been? It had no furniture to break, no glasses to smash, no toilets to drop Mac's keys into. It even had a tire swing. I was relieved to have my own place. Somehow I didn't realize I'd be here quite so long. Now I drink Pepsi, eat old apples, and watch reruns on TV. But many days I forget what I am supposed to be. Am I a human? Am I a gorilla? Humans have so many words, more than they truly need. Still, they have no name for what I am. 9,876 days. Ruby is finally asleep. I watch her chest rise and fall. Bob, too, is snoring. But my mind is still racing. For perhaps the first time ever, I've been remembering. It's an odd story to remember, I have to admit. My story has a strange shape, a stunted beginning, an endless middle. I count all the days I've lived with humans. Gorillas count as well as anyone, although it's not a particularly useful skill to have in the wild. I've forgotten so many things, and yet I always know precisely how many days I've been in my domain. I take one of the magic markers Julia gave me. I make an X, a small one, on my painted jungle wall. I make more X's and more. I make an X for every day of my life with humans. The marks look like this. The rest of the night, I mark the days when I am done. My wall looks like this. And so on, until there are 9,876 X's marching across my wall like a parade of ugly insects. That is a lot of days. A visit. It's almost morning when I hear steps. It's Mac. He has a sharp smell. He weaves as he walks. He stands next to my domain. His eyes are red. He is staring out the window at an empty parking lot. Ivan, my man, he mumbles. Ivan. He presses his forehead against the glass. We've been through a lot, you and me. I remembered what I wanted to tell you. I was thinking of this last night as I fell asleep. Now, I've read this story, but I really can't remember all the details. It's been probably about 4 years since I read it. I was wondering if you guys were wondering if Ivan would somehow use his artistic talents to save Ruby from the Big Top Mall. Because he can't talk to humans, But he could try and communicate through a picture, right? I don't know. Just a thought that I had last night and I wanted to share with you guys. A new beginning. We don't see Mac for a few days, or for 2 days. When he returns, he doesn't talk about Stella. Mac says he's anxious to teach Ruby some tricks. He says the billboard is bringing in more visitors. He says it's time for a new beginning. All afternoon and into the evening, Mac works with Ruby. Ruby's feet are looped with rope so that she cannot run. A heavy chain hangs off her neck. Mac shows her Stella's ball, her pedestal, her stool. He introduces her to Snickers. When Ruby obeys Mac, he gives her a cube of sugar and a bit of dried apple. When she doesn't, he yells and kicks at the sawdust. When George and Julia arrive, Mac is still training Ruby. Julia sits on a bench and watches them. She draws a little, but mostly she keeps her eyes on Ruby. Bob watches too. He's hiding in the corner of my domain under Knot Tag. It's raining outside, and Bob does not like damp feet. Ruby trudges behind Mac, her head drooping. Endlessly they circle the ring. Sometimes Mac slaps her flank with his hand. Suddenly, Ruby jerks to a stop. Mac pulls the chain hard, but Ruby refuses to move. Come on, Ruby, Mac is almost pleading. What is your problem? She's exhausted, I say to myself. That's the problem. Mac groans. Idiot elephant. Bob mutters. Idiot human. Not nice words, right? But they're in the story, so I wanted to read them. Walk, Ruby, I say, although she's too far away to hear me. Do what he says. Walk, Mac commands. Now! Ruby doesn't walk. She plops her rump on the sawdust floor. I think maybe she's tired, Julia says. Mac wipes his forehead with the back of his arm. Yeah, I know. We're all tired. He pushes Ruby with the heel of his boot. She ignores him. George looks over from the food court where he is wiping off table. Mac, he yells, maybe you should call it a day. I'll close up. Mac yanks on Ruby's chains. She's as anchored as a tree trunk. Think about that visual for a second. I love the language that Katherine Applegate uses in this story, but as anchored as a tree trunk. If you think of a big tree trunk, how do you think of it? Is it moving around? Is it waving in the wind? The branches might wave, but the trunk stays still. It's anchored to the ground, right? He pulls harder and falls to his knees. That does it, Max says. He brushes sawdust off his jeans. I'm through playing around. Max stomps off to his office. When he returns, he is carrying a long stick. The gleaming hook on its end is almost beautiful. It's like a silver moon. It's a claw stick. Mac pokes Ruby with a sharp point. Not hard, just a touch. I can tell he wants to see how much more it can hurt. I growl low in my throat. Ruby doesn't budge. She is a gray, unmoving boulder. She closes her eyes, and for a moment I wonder if she might have fallen asleep. I'm warning you, Max says. He breathes out. He stares at the ceiling. Ruby makes a huffing sound. Fine, Max says. You want to play it that way? He draws back the claw stick. No, Julia cries. I'm not going to hurt her, Max says. I just want to get her attention. Bob snarls. Max swings. The hook slices the air just a few inches above Ruby's head. See why you don't want to mess with me? Max says. He draws back the claw stick again. Now move. Ruby jerks her head, flinging her trunk toward Mac. She makes a noise that sends the sawdust scattering. It makes my glass shiver. It's the most beautiful mad I've ever heard. Ruby's trunk slaps into Mac. I don't see exactly where she strikes him, somewhere below his stomach, I think, and I know it must be uncomfortable because Mac draws the claw stick and falls down on the ground and curls into a ball and howls like a baby. Direct hit, Bob says. All right, I'm going to stop us there for today and we'll pick back up. Again, this is a book that you would typically read in maybe 3rd grade or up. There are some words, like we saw in this chapter, that are not nice words. They're not friendly words. They're not words we should be using, but they were written in the book. And also, we already knew there was some sad stuff in here and some hard stuff, right? But the good news is we can always remember that the real Ivan had such a happy ending when he got to live his beautiful, safe, happy life at the Zoo Atlanta for the last 20 years of his life. So remember, this is fiction, but there are people that do not treat animals well, and it's important, I think, to be aware of that, right? So be thinking about how you think Ivan's going to save Ruby and share your ideas with me, and I'll be back here tomorrow for some more Ivan. Bye, guys.